All right, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to How to Grow, where we are obsessed with growing businesses and equally obsessed with the people who grow them. My name is Drew. I'm a marketing strategist and founder of GroHaus, a business accelerator designed to help service-based business owners overcome the marketing and operational roadblocks that keep them from success. In this week's interview, we have a GroHaus Hall-of-Famer. She's been with me since right after I bought out my former partners from the business. Side note, if you are interested in hearing more about that adventure, make sure to check out the last episode where I broke down our history of our coaching business. But back to the topic at hand. Julianna Tapper is a Tapper. I messed it up. Is a former school teacher turned education consultant and teacher of teachers. Besides the high-ticket consulting work she does, she also runs one of the most organized and successful course-based businesses I've ever seen and holds the record for the lowest lead cost I've ever seen a client achieve. More about that later, but for right now, please welcome to the show, Julianna Tapper. Julianna Tapper. I cannot believe I just checked that with you and I still got it wrong. I had it right.
All good.
So anyway, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to share your story with everybody because I've told it so many times because it's really remarkable. But I think the where you started from is a little less remarkable. And I think it's something that a lot of business owners feel. It's kind of you hit the same precipice that a lot of people feel that hit in their fields before they start doing what they were really meant to do. So could you start with giving us kind of maybe a rundown of what your current business is and then the history behind, how did you get to the point where you're running your own business?
Yeah. So in 2018, I left the classroom to start my consulting business, Collaborate Ed Consulting. And I work with schools and districts all around the US to help train their math teachers, and specifically kind of like that Algebra 1 math intervention, like students who really struggle with math and the teachers of students who really struggle with math. And before that, I was a classroom math teacher for 5 years, and then an instructional coach, like a district instructional coach for 3 years. And I went back to the classroom after coaching for a couple of years when we moved to Colorado. And I could not deal with such a rigid schedule. I didn't want to have to be there at a certain time, have to leave at a certain time. I didn't have any kids yet, but it was still just like not the life that I wanted. And I was making such little money, spending so much time on my weekends, prepping for the week, lesson planning, grading, while my husband, who's a software engineer, is just watching football on Sundays, making more than double my salary. And it was just that moment of, I can't do this. And like, do I want to leave education altogether? It's something I'm so ridiculously passionate about, but I was like, I can't do this anymore. Then kind of I reached out to a bunch of my old coworkers and I said, hey, like, I'm thinking about leaving education altogether. What do you think I would be good at? And it resulted in them being like, I'd hire you as a consultant. And that's where the idea started. I didn't really know what education consulting was until my old boss was like, I want to hire you.
So, that's a far reach from where you are now, where, most of your business really revolves around your course-based business where you're really working with teachers one-on-one. So can you tell me a little bit about the trajectory? So you start this business consulting, you have your old boss wants to hire you right away, which is great. How did that evolve from you doing the consulting work to you wanting to do more course-based teaching?
Yeah. So then the pandemic came and I had my first baby in March of 2020. And so luckily I had wrapped up everything for my clients for the school year because I knew I was taking maternity leave for the rest of the school year. But then I realized I don't want to keep traveling. I had been traveling for clients a ton. And after the pandemic, it was like hard stop to that, even if I wanted to keep going, but I definitely didn't with a little baby at home. And so I started kind of like, I was listening a lot to like Amy Porterfield and just really starting to kind of think about digital courses. Like I hadn't really thought about it before. And then just started growing my network in that digital space. I met a wonderful girl named Lindsay Bowden. We both have little kids and she is freaking crushing the course game for math teachers. And so we ended up having a lot in common. And I learned a lot from her about digital courses and, challenges and launches and open cart, and joined a couple of like teacherpreneur groups, and realized there were more teachers like me. There were more teachers that wanted to create digital courses, or, create teachers pay teachers stores, and really bring in income outside of the classroom. So then I had another baby in 2023, and it has just solidified for me that I don't want to travel and I want a digital based business. And so like, I'm so thankful that you have been helping me. Like, it's not like it's been this super fast, overnight success. But like, we've been working on this for a couple years now. And now like my digital course side of my business has, brought in more income, more revenue for me this in 2023 than my consulting side of my business. So that's huge. And like the direction I want my business to continue growing.
So it seems like the initial, I remember when we first started working together, it was like, well, I got I have the consulting. I'm just trying to get this course business kind of off the ground. It feels like it's a little bit of a failure launch. Like I'm over here being successful and people are paying me a whole bunch of money to come teach their teachers. But then I go out and I launch a course and it's kind of like, sad trombone, like
Yes,
wah wah kind of thing,
very much.
So can you tell me, how long did you struggle in that kind of phase before we ended up connecting and started working together on getting this stuff launched?
I would say it was, I really started in like 2020 was when I first did like what I would call a launch, and like kind of went down the digital course business side. And so when did we start working together? Was it 22 or 21?
It was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from like, I would say from like July of 2020 till whenever we started working together, I was like fully ready to give up on it. Like, it's just not going to happen, because I think when we see the uber successful digital course creators, a lot of them are teaching people how to make money. And so that was a real frustration for me of like, oh, well, I'm not teaching people how to make money. I'm trying to help math teachers who make no money, and they shouldn't be paying for this out of their pocket. So what on earth am I doing, like marketing to teachers? And so that was, that was kind of challenging of like, I have these expectations of, 6-figure launches and all these things. And, it would be like a couple $1,000s. And it was just really disheartening. And my husband was even like, I think you need to let it go. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. Like, he was he was like, I think you just need to like focus on the consulting thing. Cause like, this is not going anywhere. And it's taking a lot of your time and energy. Cause I listened to so many podcasts on launching and digital courses and all these things. And it's just like, it's just not working.
And I think even when you first came in and you first signed up and we had our first meeting, and I think it was at our first meeting, because I think before we had talked about both businesses. We were like, well, I want to grow my consulting. I also have this course. And so I was kind of coming in thinking right off the bat, we really should focus on the consulting, because the consulting is the high ticket thing. It'll bring in solid revenue, like, and then we can use the profit from that to fund this course exercise, which really hasn't got off the ground yet. And I think on that first call, you kind of dropped the bomb, which was like, yeah, no, I'm good on the consulting. I just want to do the course. Like, I want that to be the big focus. And I was even a little jaded, because I was thinking the same things that everybody else sees in the news, that teachers are underpaid and they're overworked. And it's like, what teacher is going to go out of their own pocket to buy this? But the thing that convinced me it would work was actually my cousin's wife. So she's a school teacher of the year, Mansfield Elementary, I think a couple years in a row. So, go Selena if you're watching. But I saw that, I'd met teachers in the past, but I'd never met a teacher that cared as much as she did. And I said, there's got to be more than just her. She can't be the only teacher in America that cares about their students. And if she cares enough that I could see her buying this, then other teachers will buy it too. And so that was the thing that made me want to be like, okay, yeah, let's work on this. Let's try to do it. And I'm really glad we did, because I think the one of my favorite case studies to tell people is your 30-day story, because we started with, I think, what did your launch do right before? You did a launch that I think it wrapped up right before we started working. Do you remember what your revenue was for that?
Oh my gosh. I have my data open, but I don't know if I have it tracked that far. I think I started tracking the data once we had worked on our first webinar together.
Yeah. I think in my notes, I have it as like between $200 and $300. Does
I
that sound
believe
about
that.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So we then start working. I think it was around the beginning of May. We start working together. We went through, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we redid your whole webinar deck. We like
Oh
rewrote
yeah.
it, restructured it.
Oh
We
yeah.
did your
Like
funnel
completely different.
pages. Yeah.
Landing
And
page, everything.
pretty much everything except your emails, because your emails
Yeah.
were working. So we didn't really touch those, but we did everything else. And then you want to share the good news of what happened after the 30-day kind of sprint of getting all this stuff together.
Yeah. So let's see. I did a mini webinar or a mini workshop that I called it. And I had spent, let's see, what was my totals here? I can't find the total right now, but I'm going to find that for you in a minute. I ended up bringing in $10,486 for that first launch of that. And it was I think I was selling it for $67. The workshop, I was selling it for $67. And then it had a price increase to $87 during that. And it was just one of the workshops of my larger program. And so that is like, a huge thing for me.
And where most business owners, I think, would like be, running a victory lap at that point. What was amazing with you is you almost brushed it off as like a foregone conclusion. Like, okay, great, we've got that. That's fantastic. All right, so here's the next thing we have to work on. And that's something that I've appreciated working with you is how like you never let the good results blind you to the work still has to be done, and you also don't let the bad results, because not every launch goes exactly as we want.
Yeah.
You don't let that blind you to all the good work that has been done, all the progress that has been made. And so you have a very neutral bias in terms of approaching this stuff, and all very number centric. I mean, I told her right before we went live that I was like, I hope you have your numbers ready, because I have questions about your numbers.
Let me open all my spreadsheets.
Yeah. And when I said you're the most organized, it's absolutely true. I mean, I've never had anyone have the granularity of reporting that you do in some of these. And so I think when you look at your progress, do you think that mindset of having that totally neutral bias, just letting the numbers do the work, to not letting emotion get in the way and cloud your judgment, is that something you've always had? Is that something you had to learn? Is that, just part of your own mentality, is that you can be that neutral observer on yourself?
I think it's interesting that you say that, because I don't feel that way about myself. I feel like I'm like very like emotionally like, oh man, like it was only $10,000. I think it's hard, during the launches, during open cart, like it is hard to not just let your emotions be like, you suck, what do you think you're doing, and like, of course no one's going to buy from you, and all these things. And as we're recording this, I'm about to go into a open cart season, and so I know that those things come into your head, but I think it's just like an unwavering belief and desire for this to work, that I'm just like, I just have to keep going, and I have to figure out what's going to work for my audience and like for this business.
It was speaking of, the confidence in the program that this is going to work, and this isn't something you're going to do. You shared a little bit ago that your husband was even like, maybe it's time to roll up camp. Like, maybe we've run this race out. When was it that his perspective on it changed, where he's like, oh, actually, no, this could really be something?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes he's still a little like, I'm not exactly sure about this. And then I told him like, hey, I actually made $80,000 in 2023 from my digital courses. And he was like, what? Like he was just kind of like, I didn't realize it was going so well type of thing. So that was kind of fun to share that with him and tell him that and hear his reaction. And so I think he's much more bought into it now, but like say that's a very recent thing.
Oh, it's like anything. I feel like after you crack $50,000, like anything below $50,000, it's like it could be luck. Like it could
Yeah.
it could be just something else. But once you're above 50,000 a year, it's like you might actually be good at this. Like you're now
Yeah.
replacing a full income with this. This is kind of crazy.
And
So
I think it's just, I truly enjoy it. Like I enjoy like when we talk about landing pages, when we talk about like updating my sales page, like all these different things that we talk about in our meetings every other week, like I am genuinely excited to go make those changes. And like when we talk about like making the webinar slides or the challenge slides and all of that, like I genuinely love it. And, trying to figure out how to like market myself. And it's fascinating to me. Like I listen to so many business podcasts and I love it. Like I really enjoy it. And I've met with some other, teacherpreneurs and they're just like, I just don't want to learn the marketing stuff. And it's like, well, then it's never going to go anywhere if you're not willing to learn. Like it sucks that you can't just be like, hey, math teachers, I can really help you, buy my thing. But like you can't do that. No one's going to buy your thing and your business isn't going to survive.
100%. I mean, when did you find a passion for it? I mean, was it during that same 2020 period? Like did
Yeah,
you always have a knack for business, or it was totally a surprise like that you'd get into it? Was it
totally a
instant?
surprise. No, it was, I mean, even leaving the class, I thought I would be in traditional education for my entire life. Like I thought I would either kind of become an administrator or maybe I would just be a stay-at-home mom when I got pregnant. And I would just do the mom thing. That was really like what I had planned for my life. And then when I started the consulting business, I absolutely loved it. Like I absolutely loved that like I could make more money if I worked harder. And that's something that doesn't happen for teachers. It doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are, you all get paid the same. And it was fascinating to be like, wait, hold on. I can like work harder. I can network. I can put myself out there and I can actually get paid more. Like, this is amazing. And so that was a huge shift for me. And then I was like, okay, I love like consulting. This is great. And then with 2020, that's when I really started like digging into more of like the marketing podcasts and all of that. And it was just like, I just can't get enough of it. Like I am such a slow reader. Like I don't really enjoy reading. I am a former math teacher and like I read like StoryBrand like in a day. Like I could not put it down. My husband is like, why is your Kindle attached to your hand? Like you never read. And I was like, this is so good. Like oh my gosh, I have to redo so many things. Like I was just like hooked on it.
Well, it really shows. I mean, the amount of pages that we've looked at together that I'm just blown away with how much I see the influence from all of these great minds, from Donald Miller, from Russell Brunson, from all the people that I know because we've talked about it a million times that you follow. So many people go and they'll take courses, they'll read books, they'll buy .com secrets, they'll invest in all these things, but they'll never be able to take it in and then put it back out. It's all a one-way flow of information. What do you think allowed you to uncork that? Because I think, in all honesty, out of everyone I've worked with, you've been one of the very few who can do that, who can take information in and then immediately take action on it. And then it really has a noticeable impact on the work you do. So is that something that you've always had, even with teaching? Is that something that was just, you developed it? Or like, how does if someone wants to be better at that, how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, thanks. I really appreciate that. I think for sure, just the accountability of meeting with you every other week. And like, I had never heard of Russell Brunson, and like that book was a fantastic recommendation. And then for us to be able to create, the perfect webinar for my niche was huge. And other teachers aren't reading Russell Brunson Expert Secrets, so like they don't know what's coming. But so I think like the accountability and like the ability to know that I'm bouncing ideas off of someone who is really like, a master at their craft of like, I could talk to other teacherpreneurs all I want about like, oh, am I applying this book correctly? But they don't know. Like, we're all teachers. And so to be able to like actually talk to someone who understands marketing and really knows a lot about marketing, I think that is a huge part of it. And I think it's also like, I really do think teachers would make the best entrepreneurs because I remember the exact moment when I was a long-term sub and before I got my teaching credential. And so I was subbing and I was sitting in the classroom and I was like, oh, okay. Like I have to like prepare all these lesson plans for this teacher that I've now taken over. And while she's on maternity leave. And I was like, ain't no one gonna do this but me. Like
Yeah.
it was just like all of a sudden, I had gotten through college. I had, and it's like you can put it off, or I don't know. My mom did a lot of my like dioramas in school, right? Like she did a lot of my school projects for me, I'll be honest. And it's like you can kind of like pawn off things, but all of a sudden when it is your classroom, you're like, no one's going to do this but me. And I think that like really instilled you just got to do it, because if you don't do it, no one's going to do it.
It's very true. I mean, I think what a lot of people, and I felt guilty of this when I was first starting, is I felt like I needed a team. I needed a team before I had a business to support a team, because there was all this work to do. There's all this stuff to do. And it's overwhelming. And I think that's one of the things that as I started this program, I realized, well, that's a universal thing. Like there is a ton of work that goes into starting a business, but it's all sequential. It's not this scatter plot of like, well, I have to run here and do this and do this and do this. It's like, well, you just need the right order. And if you have the right order, then things can really take off for you. So speaking of doing things the right way, I'm interested in what you did the wrong way. So before we started working together, for that year you were struggling, what were looking back now that you see how things have worked, and what were your biggest mistakes in that year before we started working together?
I think, it's so tempting to buy the programs and that are like, I'm going to help you create an evergreen offer. I'm going to help you with a live launch offer or whatever it is. And you do the digital course and you download the templates and you try to mirror their landing pages and all of these things. But it really is that like each niche is a little different. Each business is a little bit different. And I think like I think that means that every funnel needs to be a little different. I don't think that you really can have like, this is exactly how your funnel should run. This is, and let me give you the templates for all of this. Like it's attractive to want to buy the templates, right? And I bought a few templates in my day, and I was in other programs that were great, and they have like the group coaching and they have the like all of those other things, but like getting the one-on-one support with you, I think was huge. But I would say the mistakes are just buying a digital course, thinking that those templates are going to be the end all be all for your business, because I think it needs a more personalized approach.
That is so true, because the template, the idea of templates is so much better than the execution of templates. It's the same with swipe files. Everybody wants a swipe file. I've been asked time and time, can you send me your swipe file? I'm like, it's not going to help you, because you don't know, like you're not, the whole reason you create a swipe file is because it's the stuff that works for you. It's the stuff that perks your ears up. Yeah, I could give you a swipe file of a bunch of stuff. It's not going to have any like you're not gonna have the context of when I got that email or what I was doing, or why I thought it was interesting. The same thing with the templates. It's like, yeah, you'll get the templates, but you won't know how to use them. You won't know how to, like, okay, yeah, you plug in your offer here and you change this language here. But at the end of the day, you can't just send that out, because then what about all the other people that bought that offer? Like, there might
Right.
be 1,000 people sending out that same email. And so
Exactly.
that's one of those things, even with like the templates that I produce for people, I'm constantly harping on, like, you got to change them. Like, the template is just the placeholder for the thing you need to create. It has a
Yeah.
structure, mimic the structure, but not the content. And yeah, a lot of people get sucked up buying all these templates. And I've had people come back like, "Ooh, I have a template for that." I'm like, throw the template out. It's
Yeah.
not going to, at the end of the day, it's going to take you more time to try to retrofit your message into one of these than it is to just start with a blank screen and start from scratch, which is not what people want to hear when they've spent,
Right.
$500 on a pack of templates. But,
Exactly.
you're the proof in the pudding, is that, like, the templates didn't work, right? You really
Yeah.
was going back to ground one, or ground
And
zero, and rebuilding.
it makes me think about we had a short chat GPT conversation in one of our meetings. I don't know if you remember it, but I was like, oh man, I don't want to write these like sales email something. And so I just put it into chat GPT, and then we were going over it and you were like, this doesn't sound like you wrote it.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, I didn't. Like, this is really chat GPT. And so I think that like furthers your point that it's templates. It's also chat GPT. Like, sure, I could have done a better job like prepping my chat GPT for what I was asking it to do, but that takes time too. And so, chat GPT is not the answer, and templates are not the answer.
The way I've been thinking about it is, using templates or using chat GPT is like taking a hammer and duct taping it to a stack of 2x4s and then calling it a house. It's like, it's just, these are tools. These are not finished products. They're
Yeah.
not meant to be finished products. It's
Yeah.
meant to get you out of a funk, get you out
Yes.
of if I was working on a list of 10 things, right? And I had the 10 things, but I was struggling to figure out the phraseology to do the descriptions of the 10 things. So I punched in the list, I said what I wanted, it spit out a good starting place, and then I went back and copy edited it.
Exactly.
That's how you got to use these things. Same thing with templates. The template will give you the direction, but it's not gonna be plug and play. There's no such thing as like a true plug and play template that's just gonna make you money.
I really don't think there is.
I've never seen one. I've bought a lot of templates. I've never found one that's that plug and play. But I will say, one of the things that I think really is the reason you've been successful is because you're willing to throw out stuff and start over. Like, we've had a lot of discussions where you will come into a call very excited to show me something, and I will spend 20 minutes tearing it apart and being like, you should probably start over. Like,
yep. There have been many of those meetings.
But you always take it and you say, yep, I get it. I get what's wrong with it. And you come back and it's 10 times better. And then you do a launch and make thousands of dollars. And it's like, oh, well, I guess that, I guess the extra effort is worth it. But I think a lot of people would get disincentivized for that. Like, it's that kind of thing. It's their worst dream coming true, is having someone really go down and break this stuff down. But that's really the only way you get better. It's the only way, unless you want to spend a whole bunch of money on ads and have the general public tell you.
Right.
I think that's the balance people have to weigh.
Yeah.
But speaking of the balance aspect, when you look at where you've been, where you're going, what do you feel like is your favorite part of now having this life where you don't have to travel as much, you do get to be home, you do get to kind of set your hours and set your destination? Like, is there one thing in particular that you've been able to look back on and say, this business gave me this, and for that I'm most appreciative?
Yeah, I mean, I get to work like 2 or 3 days a week, however I want, like with my baby at home, and I get to like still keep up with all my breastfeeding. I get to still like do all these things that like I would have never been able to do as a teacher. I would have, the kids would have had to be in full-time daycare. at 6 weeks. If I would have even had a 6-week maternity leave, that's all teachers get paid for. And I just can't imagine that. And so just to be able to be working at home with her, and luckily I have my mom to come over and help 2 days a week. But I just feel like so lucky to be able to be at home with both of my babies while they were babies. Like that's huge to me.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I know I very much enjoy the fact that I don't have to go to an office and I don't come home after my daughter's already asleep and I don't have to travel even. Like I used to
Yeah,
enjoy before I had my daughter, I used to really enjoy going to conferences. Now I'm like, oh, you better be paying me. Like
exactly.
I'm not paying to go to a conference. Like if there's not a paycheck attached to it, I'm not going. Because
100% agree with you.
yeah, it's like it's just being home for all of those moments, and like there'll be days like today's one of them where I have a really packed schedule and I won't get to see her as much, and it's like I can tell on a day-by-day basis how much she's growing and changing, and it's just crazy.
Mhm.
So I can totally see why that would be that would be your number one.
Yeah.
uh so let's talk to those entrepreneurs who are 2 years ago in your history,
Yeah.
right? They're exiting the workplace, or they're planning their exit, they're planning their escape. They don't want to work for a company that either doesn't value them, doesn't pay them enough, or just doesn't give them the kind of freedom to live the life they want. What are the lessons that you've learned along the way? What are the things that, if you could reach back and talk to Julianna 2 years ago, what would you teach her?
Man, that's a great question. I think definitely like invest in yourself. You need help. Like you need to, either get some kind of digital course that's going to help you get started or invest in coaching. Like you have to make a little bit of a upfront investment in yourself for sure. That's just going to like speed up the process so much and provide accountability. Um, I think also just like don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and just like get started, just do the thing. Like I have a lot of mom friends that like want to start businesses and want to do all these things, but they're scared to start their new Instagram account, or they're embarrassed about what other people are going to say about them for starting a business, being like making fun of someone or something. And it's like, who cares? Like you just have to start. And not until like your why is greater than those fears is it going to happen. So um I don't know, I would almost say like it's kind of like a burn the boats mentality where you're like, I remember like in my first year of starting my consulting business, I was like, I have to make this work because going back to teaching full time is not an option. So like, how can I make this work? Because that is not an option for my life anymore. And I just had to like burn the boats. There's no way getting back there. Like I'm going to get rid of all my classroom supplies. I'm going to do all these things because I'm not going to allow myself to go back there.
I think that's a really good point in terms of one of the things that I think I went through too was that idea of when I left my last corporate gig, I was done. Like I was fully done. And I told this story about how it was coming out at the November in the pandemic. So it was like not a great time to go and start your own business. And so I was kicking around. I was interviewing at a couple of these places for like CMO positions. And I sat down. I actually had offers on the table from 3 different businesses. One was from my former business partners to go and run and start this business with them. And then it was 2 other offers, and they weren't solid offers. It was kind of like, well, if we did this, would you be interested in this? And I'm sitting down and I'm reading the offers out to my wife, and we're eating lunch. And I go, why am I so not excited about this? Like all I've ever wanted was to be like a CMO or a head of marketing, a director of production. And like these are all job titles that I want, and I'm so not enthusiastic about any of them.
Yeah.
Meaning the day jobs, not the crackle thing. And I was like, the only one that's even moderately interesting to me is going to do this other thing, but then I feel like I'm going to be working for them. But at least I'll have my own thing. It'll be my own thing. I'll be able to make my own rules. I'll be able to run it the way I want it. And she's like, well, it sounds like you already made up your mind. I was like, yeah, I guess I did. Like, I think there comes a time where you realize you've already mentally burned the boats, and you might as well just go all the way, because once you've checked out, there's no going back. There's no like opening up that can of worms.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client earlier today who wanted to, he's actually going to be a guest on the show next week. He started up one show, ran it for a number of years, ended it, started another show. He wasn't thinking about opening that can of worms back up, starting the old show again. And he started going through the motions, and he's like, oh no, there's a reason why I stopped doing this show. I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy the other shows I do. So I think that's really what it is, you know, there's the mental checkout, but then there's the like acceptance of the checkout. Like, I'm done. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So when it comes to next steps for you and Collaborated, what do you see in the future? What are you excited about? What's the next evolution? I know you have some exciting things on the calendar, but give me your 2-3 year roadmap.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing is that I have a book deal. And so I will be writing a book this year, which is huge. And I am hoping that the book really helps the consulting side of the business. So that will be exciting. Although I'm also like, but I don't want to travel. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about that. So I'll have to cross that bridge when I get to it. But I'm also hoping that the book brings in a lot of interest to my digital programs. And so I think that is really exciting, of just like really wanting to use the book to get my business out there. And then also I'm wanting to just clarify, streamline, fine tune kind of like the bigger picture of my business, so that when teachers get involved with me, it's much more clear about what I offer and how I can help, because I think that's confusing right now. So I'm looking forward to like clarifying that a bit more. But yeah, I think just continuing to grow. And I think that's going to mean learning how to be a boss, because I think I'm going to need to hire consultants to work for me, and to do the traveling for me and to do the coaching for me. And so I think I'm going to need to expand into that little side jaunt of entrepreneurship, of really learning how to be a good employer and a good boss. And yeah, I think that's what's on the horizon for me.
So I teased it at the front end, but I want to get to it now. Can you tell us what your lowest cost per lead is? Because it really is. It's one of the things that I have a collection of screenshots from Julianna over the years, and every screenshot it gets a little bit lower, and by a little bit, like 10-15 cents lower each time.
Yeah.
And every time you do a launch, it seems to get lower and lower and lower. And it makes me more and more angry.
Yes.
I don't pay anywhere near these rates for my leads. But you crush it. You absolutely crush it. So what is your rock bottom dollar cost per lead?
I have it organized right now. My rock bottom dollar cost per lead is 80 cents. And that brought in 2,129 leads. So it wasn't just like, 5 leads or something. Like, it brought in a good number of leads. And I'm looking at my data from the last year. This is maximum. I'm looking at December 11th, 2020 to January 11th, 2024. And my biggest campaign has a cost per lead of $1.61.
That is unreal.
Yeah. It has helped my email list grow to like, I think I definitely crossed 14,000 math teachers on my email list. I think I'm a little closer to 15,000 now with, I'm in the middle of promoting my free challenge. So it's growing a lot at the time of recording this episode.
That's great. So with that, if there's anyone out there that needs 2,000 leads at 80 cents a piece, I can't promise that, but I can promise that we can try our absolute best to get you similar results to Julianna here. But I can't stress enough that part of the reason you got the results is because of the person you are and how dedicated you have been to this. There is
Thanks.
nobody that I've ever worked with that comes more prepared to our sessions than you. I never have to worry about you showing up and being like, I don't know, like, let's figure something else out. You always know exactly what you want to talk about. And you always have something new and exciting. So I appreciate the heck out of you as a client, as a business owner. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun to chat.
All right. Well, for those of you watching, thanks for hanging out with us. I appreciate all of the comments and likes and the shares. I really do. We'll be back on Tuesday for part 2 of the breakdown of the business. And if you have any questions or if you want to be on the show, be sure to drop me a note. So until Tuesday, folks, have a good one.